In December, I had the opportunity to go down and spend a couple of days in Fort Lauderdale. It was the first time I was in Florida in the wintertime, and it looked just like summer everywhere else. I wanted to improvise, so I didn't plan ahead, and I was surprised to find out that the Everglades were less than an hour and a half away. I'd never been there before, so I went through the entry, got a map, tried to get oriented, and made kind of a plan to go down toward the coast. There were these islands of vegetation out in the middle of the grasslands, like this Anhinga Trail, they called it. I went and decided to get in there, and the first thing I found was an anhinga. It's one of those water birds that suns themselves and dries their feathers. I also saw some other local wildlife. That's my first gator on this trip. It's beautiful marshland, beautiful trail, and sparsely populated. But it did have several anhingas along the trail. In the water, I saw gar, which is truly a prehistoric kind of fish. Looks like a dinosaur. But I was really looking for another gator.
See if I can get a better shot of him. Oh, there he is.
Talk about dinosaurs. Look at that guy. Then I saw a cormorant doing a silent opera imitation. They're not the best looking birds, but they sure are neat. Different varieties of wildlife here. I even found a fish that had swallowed his neighbor. You can see his tail hanging out of his mouth right there. There was also this trail that had these gumbo limbo trees with really interesting textured bark. These little trails that go through these jungle areas that are out in the middle of the grasslands in the Everglades, there's several of them. They call them hammocks. And they have marshy lands inside them. It's where water is concentrated, and so the lush vegetation becomes a lot thicker in those areas. Anyway, I headed back out on the marshland and went down to the coast and found different vegetation along the way, including this kind of dead area like this. And I found some glamping sites that I should consider. Lettuce tree, just kidding. And just really amazing vegetation. This is a mahogany hammock where there's a lot of mahogany tree, and I found this egret out there. I hiked along the boardwalk path through the foliage, and on my way back out saw this strangler fig. Never heard of it. Interesting. And as I was leaving, an egret jumped up on the path, and I got to see him shake himself off and take off. Just beautiful, with birds and creatures creeping through the marshlands. As I was leaving, the sun was setting. It was golden hour, and I decided to flip around and try to find a place to watch the sunset. Found a good spot. It was just a beautiful sunset. I just put the sun to bed. It was beautiful. This place is magical. I made my way back out of the park and got back to Fort Lauderdale around dark, and even found a neat little diner that I was pretty excited about. The next morning I decided to go and try out the beach, so I walked down and was very surprised to find it empty. I truly had the whole place to myself, except of course for that couple right there. And a couple of people working out, running along the beach that passed me by. But it was truly beautiful. There was a really warm wind blowing. It was a really strong wind. But it was warm, so it was comfortable. And I was really surprised there was no one else there to enjoy it. As I wandered along the beach, I found some wildlife that made me a little bit nervous. This is a man-o'-war, Portuguese man-o'-war, or a blue bottle. They're some of the most dangerous. Because of the high winds, the birds, the gulls here, had landed and sort of hunkered down to let some of it die down. They sure were cute. And I kept finding these Portuguese man-o'-war washed up on the seashore and gave them a wide berth. But what a beautiful morning it was to be able to walk along the beach and see a beautiful view in every direction. Walking back was just hard to believe that we're in December. Just so beautiful down in Florida. It makes sense now, all the sunbirds that go down to Florida or either move there permanently or just go down there for the winter, because it truly is just a northern summer in the winter. Having spent most of my time in the northern latitudes, it's just such a different thing. All these varieties of trees also were just so surprising. Before I headed back to the airport, I found this little state park that was right by the shoreline in downtown Fort Lauderdale, and it had a little scenic drive around it, maybe 1.5 miles or maybe 2 miles in length. Such a pretty little drive. This park is called Hugh Taylor Birch State Park. It's named for one of the early settlers of the area who actually gifted this land to the city. And I even encountered a really neat little pedestrian crossing the street and had to stop for him. There was a cute little turtle crossing that I saw as well. I didn't see any turtles, but I liked the sign. This little road takes you out on the waterway where you can see all these incredible mansions. Beautiful. There was even what appeared to be a dentist's office. Just kidding. But really, there must be some serious money along these waterways. Anyway, it was really nice to get out into a warm environment during December from New York City.